The sound of fabric tearing echoed through the classroom like a gunshot. Grace Patterson stood frozen for half a second, her dress ripped from shoulder to waist. 28 pairs of eyes locked on her in shock. Harrison Blake's laughter cut through the silence, cruel and triumphant. "What are you gonna do now?" "Teacher." He stepped back, his football player frame blocking the door. His crew, Jake Morrison and Connor Walsh, flanked him like hyenas circling wounded prey. But Grace wasn't prey, not anymore. The morning had started like any other Monday at Jefferson High. Grace wrote her name on the whiteboard with careful strokes, the chalk squeaking against the surface. Miss Patterson. Simple, professional, everything she'd trained herself to be after leaving her old life behind. "Good morning, everyone," she'd said, turning to face her third-period literature class. "I know I'm new here, but I'm excited to—" "Fresh meat," Harrison's voice boomed from the back row. The 6'2" senior sprawled across his desk like he owned it. Hell, his father's donations practically meant he did own it. Grace had noticed him immediately, not because of his size or the way other students automatically gave him space. She noticed the predator's laziness in his movements, the casual cruelty in how he knocked Marie Chen's books off her desk without even looking. "Oops," he'd said, not bothering to hide his smirk. Marie scrambled to collect her scattered papers, her face burning red. "Mr. Blake?" Grace had kept her voice level. "Please, pick those up." The classroom went silent. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to stop humming. Harrison's eyes narrowed. "You talking to me?" "I don't see any other Mr. Blake in this room." Someone gasped. Actually gasped, like she'd just challenged a king in his own throne room. Harrison unfolded himself from his desk slowly, deliberately, each movement designed to intimidate. Grace recognized the technique she'd faced it in dozens of matches before. Make yourself look bigger. Move with threatening slowness. Let them imagine what you could do. "You must not know who I am," he said, walking toward her desk. His Air Jordans squeaked against the linoleum. "I'm Harrison Blake. My dad built the new science wing. The Blake Athletic Center, that's us." "Congratulations," Grace replied. "Now please pick up Marie's books." His face flushed dark red. For 3 years, teachers had looked the other way, passed him despite missing assignments, ignored his behavior because Daddy's checks cleared. "Make me." 2 words. A challenge that hung in the air like smoke. Grace studied him for a long moment. She saw the arrogance born from never facing consequences. The entitled rage of someone who'd never heard no. Her fingers twitched with muscle memory block. Redirect. Throw. But she forced them still. "I don't make students do anything, Mr. Blake. I give them choices. Pick up the books and we continue class. Refuse. And you can explain to Principal Oswald why you're disrupting learning." Harrison laughed. "Oswald? You think Oswald's gonna do anything to me?" He was right. Of course. Grace had met Principal Oswald exactly once, during her hiring interview. He'd spent more time talking about maintaining donor relationships than education. She'd known then what kind of school this was, but she'd taken the job anyway because students like Marie needed someone in their corner. "The choice is yours," Grace said simply. Harrison's jaw clenched. Nobody challenged him. Ever. He glanced at his crew, then at the other students watching with held breath. His reputation was on the line. Whatever. He kicked one of Marie's notebooks, sending it sliding under a desk. "Class is boring anyway." He headed for the door. "I didn't dismiss you." He froze, turned back slowly. "What did you say?" "I said I didn't dismiss you. You leave without permission. That's an automatic detention." "Detention?" He laughed, but it sounded forced. "Lady, you really don't get it. I don't do detention." "Then don't leave." The standoff stretched for 10 seconds. 20. Finally, Harrison stomped back to his seat, throwing himself down hard enough to make the desk screech against the floor. Grace turned back to the board as if nothing had happened. "Now, let's discuss the themes in Chapter 3 of To Kill a Mockingbird." Behind her, she heard Harrison whisper to Jake, "This isn't over." No, Grace thought. It was just beginning. The rest of that first week had been a series of escalating incidents. Harrison arrived late to every class, slamming the door. He accidentally knocked over Grace's coffee mug, staining a stack of essays. He coughed loudly whenever she spoke, encouraging his friends to join in until it sounded like a tuberculosis ward. Grace documented everything, every disruption, every instance of bullying. Every time Harrison made another student flinch, she filed reports with Oswald, who promised to look into it with the same sincerity of a politician promising tax cuts. "You have to understand," Oswald had said during one of their meetings, his office reeking of cheap cologne and desperation. "The Blake family has been very generous to Jefferson High. Without their support, you'd have to actually run a school instead of a country club," Grace had wanted to say. Instead, she'd nodded and left, knowing she was on her own. It was Benjamin Palmer who first noticed something different about her. The math teacher was young, maybe 25, with the kind of nervous energy that came from caring too much in a system designed to make you care less. "The way you move," he'd said one afternoon, catching her in the teacher's lounge. "When Harrison got in your face yesterday, you shifted your weight, dropped your center of gravity. That's not normal teacher training." Grace had busied herself with the coffee machine. "I took some self-defense classes in college." "That wasn't self-defense," Benjamin said quietly. "That was muscle memory. Combat sports. Right boxing, MMA. Just some martial arts. Nothing serious." The lie came easily. She'd gotten good at minimizing her past, making it sound like a hobby instead of a life. Benjamin hadn't pressed, but she'd caught him watching her sometimes, the way she automatically positioned herself with her back to walls, how she kept exits in peripheral vision. Little things that most people missed, but screamed "fighter" to anyone who knew what to look for. The second Monday was when things got serious. Grace arrived at 7 a.m. to find her tires slashed. All 4 of them. Neat cuts that said this wasn't random vandalism. Security footage would have shown who did it. Except, "Sorry, Ms. Patterson." The security guard had shrugged. "System went down last night. No recordings from midnight to 6. How convenient. She'd called a tow truck, paid $300 she couldn't really afford, and made it to class only 5 minutes late. Harrison had been sitting in her chair when she walked in, feet up on her desk. "Car trouble?" he'd asked innocently. "That's what happens when you buy cheap tires." The threat was clear. "I can touch your life outside these walls. I can make things difficult. Back off." Grace had simply said, "My seat, please." He'd moved, but not before accidentally knocking her lesson plan notebook into the trash. That afternoon, Marie Chen had stayed after class. The quiet junior rarely spoke up, but she'd been watching everything with dark, intelligent eyes. "Miss Patterson," she'd said, glancing at the door to make sure they were alone. "You should be careful. Harrison, he's done this before." "Done what?" "Run teachers out. Ms. Rodriguez lasted 2 months. Mr. Kern made it to Christmas before he had a nervous breakdown. Harrison picks a target and doesn't stop until they break. Grace had sat on the edge of her desk, studying the girl. Marie was small, maybe 5'2", with the hunched posture of someone trying to become invisible. Her clothes were thrift store finds, carefully maintained but clearly old. Scholarship kid, probably. The kind Harrison loved to torment. "Has he bothered you?" Grace asked gently. Marie's laugh was bitter. "Only every day for 2 years. But my mom works 3 jobs to keep me in this school. She thinks it's my ticket to a better life. So I keep my head down and count the days until graduation." "You shouldn't have to just endure it." "No offense, Ms. Patterson, but you're new here. You don't understand how things work. Harrison owns this place. His dad donates $2 million a year. You think Oswald's going to choose a first-year teacher over that kind of money?" Grace had wanted to tell her that money wasn't everything, that right mattered more than donations, but she knew how naive that sounded. Instead, she'd said, "I'm not going anywhere, Marie, and neither are you. We'll figure this out together." Marie had looked at her with a mixture of hope and pity. Ms. Rodriguez said the same thing. That night, Grace had sat in her small apartment, staring at the box she kept in her closet. She hadn't opened it in 2 years. Inside were medals, photos, and memories of a different life. A life where she'd been Gracie the Ghost Patterson, rising star in the judo world, 3-time national champion, Olympic hopeful, until the knee injury that changed everything. She touched the scar through her jeans, remembering the sound her ACL made when it tore, like a rubber band snapping. 18 months of surgeries and physical therapy. Doctors saying she might compete again. Might being the word that killed dreams. She'd made the choice to walk away, to find a new purpose. Teaching had filled that void, given her a way to make a difference without stepping onto a mat. She'd buried the ghost and become Ms. Patterson, mild-mannered literature teacher. But watching Harrison torment kids like Marie, seeing Oswald enable it, feeling the familiar rage build when bullies went unchecked, maybe the ghost wasn't as buried as she'd thought. The Wednesday before, everything went to hell. Grace witnessed Harrison's cruelty reach new heights. She'd been walking past the cafeteria when she heard the crash. Inside, Marie stood frozen, her lunch tray upended. Food splattered across her clothes and the floor. "So clumsy," Harrison laughed, high-fiving Jake. "Maybe if you could afford glasses that actually work." Other students looked away. Some filmed on their phones. No one helped as Marie knelt to clean up the mess, tears streaming down her face. "Mr. Blake?" Grace's voice cut through the cafeteria noise like a blade. "Principal's office, now." For what she tripped. Now. Harrison had gone, eventually. Oswald had given him a stern talking to that consisted of them laughing about something on Oswald's phone for 10 minutes. Harrison had returned to class with a smirk that said he knew exactly how untouchable he was. That night, Grace received her first anonymous text, "Stop making trouble or things get worse." Thursday brought a new level of harassment. Someone had created a fake social media profile in her name, posting inappropriate comments about students. It traced it to a computer lab terminal, but naturally, the login records were corrupted. Her classroom door was super glued shut. Her car was keyed with a lovely message about her teaching abilities. Someone posted her apartment address on a local forum with the caption, "Jefferson High's newest problem lives here." Through it all, Grace documented, filed reports, followed protocol. and watched Harrison grow bolder with each passing day. Benjamin tried to warn her Thursday night. He'd caught her in the parking lot, looking nervous. "Grace, listen. Tomorrow's Friday. Harrison always escalates on Fridays. It's like his weekly grand finale. And with how you've been challenging him—" "I'll be fine, Benjamin. You don't understand. Last year, Ms. Rodriguez's final day was a Friday. Harrison did something no one knows exactly what, but she left campus in tears and never came back. Just be careful." Grace had thanked him for the concern. She'd noticed him noticing her movements, the way she stayed balanced, even carrying stacks of books. Maybe he'd been a fighter once too. There was something in how he held himself, a readiness that most people lost after high school. Friday morning arrived gray and humid, the kind of weather that made everything feel oppressive. Grace dressed carefully, professional blazer, knee-length dress, sensible flats. She'd learned long ago that how you presented yourself affected how people treated you. Look weak, become a target. Look strong, maybe they'd think twice. She should have known something was wrong when the hallways went quiet as she passed. Students who usually smiled ducked their heads. A few looked at her with what seemed like pity. Her classroom door was unlocked, which was strange since she'd definitely locked it yesterday. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. Like someone had been there and carefully put everything back exactly as it was. First period passed without incident. Second period, Harrison was absent. The relief in the room was palpable. Students actually participated, raised hands, engaged with the material. Grace allowed herself to think maybe he decided to skip school. Give everyone a break. She should have known better. Third period. 2:45 p.m., 20 minutes into class. Discussing symbolism in literature. Marie actually smiled, volunteering to read aloud. Other students were taking notes, asking questions. It was everything teaching should be. Then the door opened. Harrison entered first, followed by Jake and Connor. But something was different. They moved with purpose, coordination. Jake turned the lock behind them with a soft click that seemed to echo. "Sorry we're late, Miss Patterson," Harrison said, but his tone held no apology, only anticipation. "Had some things to take care of." He walked down the center aisle slowly. Students shrank away from him like he was radioactive. Marie's hands started shaking. "Take your seats, gentlemen," Grace said calmly, though her instincts screamed danger. "We're in the middle of—" "Actually," Harrison interrupted, "we need to talk about my grade. We can discuss that after class." "No?" He'd reached the front now, standing too close. 6'2" of entitled rage barely contained. "We'll discuss it now. See, I've been thinking. You gave me a D on that last essay. You turned in 2 paragraphs that were clearly written by AI. A D was generous." His eye twitched. Behind him, Jake and Connor spread out, casual but strategic, boxing her in. "You know what your problem is?" Harrison's voice dropped low, menacing. "You don't understand how things work here. You think you're some kind of hero, standing up for losers like her." He jerked his head toward Marie. "But you're not. You're just another nobody teacher who's about to learn her place. My place is right here. Mr. Blake, teaching. Your place is in a seat, learning. Choose one or leave." He laughed. Actually laughed. "God, you really don't get it. My dad owns this school, owns Oswald, owns everything. And after today, he'll own you too. Or you'll be gone. Is that a threat? It's a promise." He moved closer. Too close. "See, we know all about you. Grace Patterson." "Yeah, I used your first name. What you gonna do about it? The class held its breath. Phones were out, recording. Good. Let them record. We know you were some kind of athlete, Harrison continued. Couldn't cut it. Got hurt. Quit. Now you're here, trying to act tough, but you're not tough. You're just another washed-up nobody trying to feel important by picking on kids. The irony of him accusing her of picking on kids would have been funny if the situation wasn't so serious. Sit down. Harrison, final warning. Or what? He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne. Expensive. Probably cost more than her car payment. You'll give me detention. Send me to Oswald. We both know how that ends. Behind him, Jake moved to block the door completely. Connor positioned himself near the windows. They'd done this before. Practiced it. You know what I think? Harrison reached out like he was going to touch her desk. Then, accidentally, knocked her coffee mug over. Dark liquid spread across student essays. I think you need a lesson in respect. Grace didn't move to clean it up. Didn't react. Just watched him with the kind of calm that comes before violence. Nothing to say. No more teacher voice. He was getting frustrated. Good. Frustrated people made mistakes. Maybe you need help finding your words. He reached for her lesson plan book, the one with all her notes, her plans, her careful organization. His fingers had just touched it when Grace moved. Not much, just a shift of position that put the book out of reach and her body in a stance anyone with training would recognize. Weight distributed, hands open but ready, breathing controlled. Harrison hesitated. Just for a second. Something in her movement. Maybe. Something that didn't match the image of helpless teacher he'd built in his head. Then his ego overrode his instincts. Pathetic, he snarled, and lunged. What happened next would be replayed on 28 phone cameras. Posted, shared, analyzed, but in the moment. It happened too fast for most to follow. Harrison grabbed for her. Whether to push her, or grab her, or just intimidate. No one was quite sure. His hand caught the fabric of her dress at the shoulder. Grace tried to step back, avoid the confrontation, de-escalate like she'd been trained in every teacher seminar. But Harrison held on, pulled, and the fabric, never designed for stress, gave way with a sound like thunder. The dress tore from shoulder to waist, exposing Grace's athletic tank top underneath and the kind of muscle definition that didn't come from yoga classes. Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Then Harrison laughed, loud, cruel, triumphant. Look at that, Ms. Patterson's not so perfect after all. He stepped back, admiring his handiwork. What are you gonna do now? Teacher, gonna cry, gonna run away like Rodriguez. Grace stood there, dress ruined, 28 students staring, some in shock, some in sympathy, most waiting to see what happened next. She could feel it building, the old fire, the competitors' rage at injustice, the warriors' need to defend. Her hands wanted to form fists. Her body wanted to move, to teach this bully what real consequences looked like. But she was a teacher. She had responsibilities, standards. She couldn't just nothing to say. Harrison stepped forward again, drunk on his perceived victory. That's what I thought. You're weak, pathetic, a nobody who… Harrison. Grace's voice had changed. Gone was the teacher's measured tone. This was something else, something that made everyone in the room, including Jake and Connor, take an instinctive step back. Everyone except Harrison. He was too far gone in his power trip to notice the danger. "What? You gonna do something about it?" He spread his arms wide, playing to his audience. "Come on, then. Show us what you got, unless you're too scared, unless you're just another—" Grace moved, not the uncertain shuffle of a frightened teacher, not the panicked flail of a victim. She moved like water, like lightning, like someone who'd spent 15 years learning the perfect marriage of balance, timing, and explosive power. Her stance shifted, feet sliding into position with practiced ease. Her hands came up, not in fists, but open, ready. Her entire body language transformed in an instant from prey to predator. "Holy shit," someone whispered. Harrison finally noticed. His laughter died. His eyes widened. For the first time in his privileged life, he found himself facing someone who wasn't afraid of him, someone who could hurt him, someone who was deciding whether or not she should. "Last chance," Grace said quietly. "Apologize. Sit down. Let me teach." Harrison's face cycled through emotions: surprise, fear, then anger at feeling fear. His jaw clenched. His hands formed fists. "You think you can threaten me? Me?" His voice cracked slightly. "I own this place. My father will destroy you. You'll never teach again. You'll—" He charged. Harrison charged like a bull, all muscle and no technique. 200 pounds of entitled rage aimed at a target he thought was defenseless. Grace had 0.7 seconds to decide. Let him hit her, claim victim status, maybe finally get him expelled. Or her body decided for her. 15 years of training overrode 2 years of trying to be someone else. She pivoted left, letting his momentum carry him past. Her hands found his arm and shirt. A classic Osotogari major outer reap. Simple, effective, beautiful. Harrison's world flipped, literally. One moment he was charging forward. The next he was horizontal in the air, looking at the ceiling tiles. He had just enough time to think, "What the fuck?" before his back met the floor. Wham! The impact shook the entire classroom. Books fell off desks. The projector screen swayed. Harrison lay there, gasping like a fish, trying to understand how he'd gone from vertical to horizontal so fast. "Oh my God!" someone screamed. "Did you see that? She just— Is he dead?" Grace stepped back, hands still in ready position. Not aggressive, just prepared. Her torn dress fluttered around her, but she might as well have been wearing armor for all the vulnerability she showed. "Stay down," she said quietly. Harrison wheezed, trying to get air back in his lungs. The throw had been clean, no real damage, just enough to stop him. But to someone who'd never been thrown, it felt like getting hit by a truck. Jake moved first. "You bitch! You can't—" He reached for Grace from behind. Another mistake. She turned into him, her movement flowing like water. Ippon Seoi Nage, one arm shoulder throw, even easier than the first one. Jake joined Harrison on the floor, landing with a thud that rattled windows. Connor stood frozen by the windows, hands half raised. I don't want any trouble." "Then sit down," Grace said. He practically dove into the nearest chair. The classroom erupted. Students talking, shouting, some cheering. Marie Chen had her phone out, making sure she captured everything. Her hands were steady now, no more shaking. Seeing her tormentor laid out on the floor had given her something she'd lost hope. "Everyone calm down," Grace commanded, her teacher voice returning. "Is anyone hurt?" Harrison managed to sit up, holding his back. You assaulted me. I'll sue. My father will—" Your father will see 28 videos of you attacking a teacher." Grace interrupted. "You grabbed me, tore my clothing. That's assault. I defended myself with minimum necessary force." "Minimum," Jake groaned from the floor. "You threw us. If I'd used maximum force, you'd be in the hospital." Matter of fact, not a threat, just truth. The door handle rattled. Someone pounding from outside. "Open this door immediately, Principal Oswald." Of course. Someone had texted him the moment things started. "Marie," Grace said calmly, "would you please unlock the door?" Marie jumped up, eager to help. She turned the lock just as Oswald burst through, face red, breathing hard from running. He took in the scene, Harrison and Jake on the floor. Grace with her torn dress. Students filming everything, and his expression went through several changes. Shock, anger, then calculation as he tried to figure out how to spin this. "Ms. Patterson, what have you done?" "Defended myself from assault," Grace replied evenly. "Mr. Blake attacked me, tore my clothing, and charged at me with clear intent to cause harm. I used reasonable force to stop him." "Reasonable? You attacked students." "Check the videos," Marie said boldly, surprising everyone, including herself. "We all saw what happened. Harrison started it." "She's lying." Harrison struggled to his feet, playing victim now. "This crazy woman just attacked us for no reason. She's been targeting me all semester." Oswald's eyes darted between them, sweating. This was his nightmare scenario. The Blake family's golden boy versus viral videos. Money versus evidence. "Everyone put your phones away," he ordered. "Delete those videos immediately." Nobody moved. "I said delete them." "That would be destruction of evidence," Grace said mildly. "I'm sure you don't want to be accused of covering up assault." "Principal Oswald." His face went purple. "You're suspended. Effective immediately. Security." 2 security guards appeared, looking uncomfortable. They knew Grace. She'd always been polite, professional. But orders were orders. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," the older one said apologetically. Grace nodded. "Of course. Marie, would you mind grabbing my jacket from the chair? I seem to have a wardrobe malfunction." As Marie helped her into the jacket, covering the torn dress, she whispered, "This isn't over. Don't let them delete anything." "I won't," Marie promised. There was steel in her voice that hadn't been there before. Grace walked out with dignity, head high, while Harrison shouted about lawsuits and his father's connections. But she noticed something. Not all the students were looking at Harrison anymore. They were looking at her. With respect, with awe, with hope. The next 3 hours were a blur of meetings, threats, and phone calls. Grace sat in the conference room, still wearing her torn dress under the jacket. As lawyers arrived, Harrison's father stormed in, all 6'4" of him, designer suit and rage. "You put your hands on my son!" James Blake slammed his fist on the table. "Your son assaulted me first," Grace replied calmly. "There's video evidence." "I don't care what's on video. You're done. You'll never teach again. I'll sue you for everything you have." "Which is a 2008 Honda Civic and $40,000 in student loans," Grace said. "Good luck with that." James Blake's lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in a $1,000 suit, leaned forward. "Miss Patterson, we're prepared to offer you $50,000 to resign quietly. Sign a non-disclosure agreement. This all goes away." "No, no, no, I won't be bought. I won't be silenced. And I won't abandon my students." "Then we'll destroy you," James Blake snarled. Every connection I have, every favor I'm owed. You'll be lucky to get a job cleaning toilets when I'm done." Grace met his eyes steadily. "You know what your son needed. Mr. Blake. Someone to tell him no. Someone to show him actions have consequences. You failed him as a father. I won't fail him as a teacher." His face went an interesting shade of purple. "How dare you?" The door opened. Benjamin Palmer entered, followed by someone Grace didn't recognize, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense bearing. "Sorry to interrupt," Benjamin said, not sounding sorry at all. "This is Superintendent Walsh from the district office. She'd like to see the videos." The room went quiet. District involvement meant this had jumped several levels above Oswald's ability to bury. "There's no need for that," Oswald started. "We're handling this internally. I'll decide what there's need for." Superintendent Walsh cut him off. "Mr. Palmer has already shown me several videos from students. Very enlightening." She turned to Grace. "Ms. Patterson, are you injured?" "No, ma'am, just some property damage." She indicated the torn dress. "And you, Mr. Blake?" She looked at Harrison, who was trying to look pathetic in his chair. "Any injuries requiring medical attention?" "My back hurts," he whined. "I'm sure it does. Being thrown tends to do that." Her tone was dry as sand. "However, I see no bruises, no blood, no need for paramedics. What I do see is clear video evidence of you assaulting a teacher." "She threw me," Harrison protested. "After you grabbed her, tore her clothing, charged at her with clear, aggressive intent." Walsh pulled out a tablet. "Would you like to see the compilation Mr. Palmer helped put together? 28 different angles. Very thorough." James Blake's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. His face kept getting redder. "Now," Walsh continued, "let's discuss the real issue here. Mr. Oswald, I've received 17 complaints about bullying incidents involving Mr. Blake in the past year alone. All mysteriously disappeared from the record. Care to explain?" Oswald's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish. "I also have signed statements from 3 former teachers who left Jefferson High after being targeted by Mr. Blake and his friends. One required therapy. Another left teaching entirely." She turned to James Blake. "Your donations to this school have been generous. They've also been used as a shield for your son's behavior. That ends today. You can't—" "I can and I will. Harrison Blake is suspended pending a full investigation. If the evidence supports it, and from what I've seen, it does, he'll be expelled. Any attempt to interfere with this investigation will result in criminal charges." "This is outrageous." James Blake stood, towering over everyone. "I'll have your job." "You're welcome to try," Walsh said calmly. "But I should mention that the videos are already circulating online. The headline, 'Millionaire's Son Assaults Teacher,' doesn't play well with the public. Neither does 'School Covers Up Bullying for Donations.'" She turned to Grace. "Ms. Patterson, you're reinstated effective immediately. The district will cover any costs related to this incident, including your clothing. We'd also like to discuss implementing your classroom management techniques district-wide." "What?" Oswald squeaked. "A teacher who can defend herself while maintaining perfect control, who inspires students to stand up against bullying. That's exactly what we need." Walsh smiled. "Though perhaps we'll focus on the verbal de-escalation techniques rather than the judo throws." "This isn't over," James Blake growled, gathering his dignity like armor. "Come on, Harrison, we're leaving." Harrison stood, trying to look tough despite the way he winced. As he passed Grace, he muttered, "You'll pay for this." Grace looked at him with something almost like pity. "No, Harrison, you'll pay, but payment doesn't have to be punishment. It can be growth, learning, becoming better than you were. The choice is yours. And he stormed out without responding. But she saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt. Maybe. The first crack in his armor of entitlement. After everyone left. Grace sat alone in the conference room. Benjamin knocked, then entered with a cup of coffee. "Thought you might need this," he said, sitting across from her. "Thanks." She wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "How did Walsh know to come?" Benjamin smiled. Marie Chen sent the videos to every news outlet and education official she could find. Kids got a future in journalism. But also, he hesitated. "I may have called in a favor. Walsh is my aunt." Grace raised an eyebrow. I know. But I've watched too many good teachers get crushed by the Blakes of the world. When I saw what you did today, someone who could stand up to them, I couldn't let them bury you." "I didn't want it to go that way," Grace said quietly. "I just wanted to teach. Sometimes teaching means showing students that bullies can be stopped, that someone will fight for them." He paused. "Where did you train? By the way, that was beautiful technique." Grace smiled for the first time in hours. "Started when I was 8. My dad thought every girl should know how to defend herself. Made it to nationals 3 times before." She touched her knee. "Before life had other plans. Their loss. Our gain." Benjamin stood. "Come on, let me walk you to your car. Unless it's been vandalized again. Actually, I should go back to my classroom. Face the students. Show them I'm not going anywhere." But when she reached her room, she found it empty except for one person. Marie Chen sat at her desk, typing furiously on her laptop. "Marie, what are you doing here?" The girl looked up, eyes bright with determination. "Writing. About today. About you. About all of it." She turned the laptop around. The headline read, "The Day Everything Changed, How One Teacher's Courage Transformed Jefferson High." "Marie, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. For 2 years. I've kept my head down, stayed quiet, accepted that this was just how things were." Marie's voice grew stronger. "But today, you showed me something. You showed all of us that we don't have to accept it, that we can fight back, that someone will stand with us." She paused, then added quietly, "You saved us, Ms. Patterson, not just from Harrison, from believing we didn't matter." Grace felt tears sting her eyes. "You always mattered, Marie. Every single one of you matters. I just reminded you of that." Marie smiled. "Can I quote you on that?" "Quote away." As Grace gathered her things, Marie asked, "Will you teach us self-defense? I mean, not just the physical stuff, but the other kind, the standing up kind." Grace considered. "You know what? Yes, I will." Monday morning came too soon. Grace arrived early, unsure what to expect. Would parents demand her firing? Would students fear her? Would the Blake machine mobilize to destroy her? What she found was a hallway full of students, waiting. When they saw her, they started clapping. Not mockingly, not sarcastically. Real, genuine applause. "Miss P," someone called out, "You're back." She made her way through the crowd, accepting high fives and fist bumps. Even students she didn't teach nodded respectfully. The culture had shifted overnight. The reign of fear was over. Harrison wasn't in school, neither were Jake or Connor. But the atmosphere was different without them. Lighter. Students participated more, raised hands, took risks. During lunch, Oswald called her to his office. He looked older, defeated. The board met last night, he said without preamble. I've been placed on administrative leave pending investigation into my handling of bullying complaints. Grace said nothing. They're right, he continued. I failed these students. I let money matter more than their safety. I forgot why I became an educator in the first place. What happens now? I'll probably be replaced. Maybe that's for the best. He looked at her. I owe you an apology, Miss Patterson, and the students. I took the easy path instead of the right one. The right path is still there, Grace said. It's never too late to change direction. 3 weeks later, Jefferson High held its first self-defense seminar. Grace taught basic awareness and verbal de-escalation. Benjamin assisted with the physical techniques. The gym was packed students, parents, even some teachers from other schools. Marie Chen covered it for the school paper. Her article about the Harrison incident had been picked up by national outlets. She'd already received early acceptance letters from 3 journalism programs. Halfway through the seminar, the gym doors opened. Harrison Blake walked in. Alone. No entourage, no swagger. Just a 17-year-old kid who looked lost. The gym went silent. Grace stepped forward. Can I help you? Harrison. He swallowed hard. I wanted to apologize. Publicly. For everything. Suspicious murmurs rippled through the crowd. My dad made me write apology letters before. Harrison continued. For PR, but this is from me. He looked at Marie. I'm sorry. For 2 years of making your life hell. For thinking I had the right to hurt people because my family had money. He turned to Grace. And I'm sorry for attacking you. For trying to run you out. For being everything wrong with this place. Thank you, Harrison, Grace said. That took courage. He hesitated. I was wondering if I could join the class. Learn the right way to be strong. If you'll have me. Grace looked at the crowd. Some faces showed anger, some skepticism. But Marie Chen stood up. Everyone deserves a second chance, she said clearly. That's what Ms. Patterson taught us. But you have to earn it, Grace nodded. There's a mat in the back, Harrison. But understand in here, everyone's equal, no special treatment. I understand, he said quietly. That's what I want. As Harrison found a spot, carefully avoiding Marie's area, Grace resumed the lesson. Change, real change, was possible. It just took someone willing to stand up and say, enough, and sometimes, just sometimes. They do it with perfect technique and a torn dress that becomes a symbol of change. The ghost was gone. The teacher remained. But now everyone knew this teacher could fight.